Hi, my name is Zelman Ainsworth. I'm so excited to interview a good friend and mentor of mine, Mark Rubbo. Mark owns a business called Readings Bookshop here in Melbourne. We're in the Lygon Carlton Street store. Mark's an authentic, true Australian retail hero who really understands his industry, his products, and his customers, and cuts through all the noise and focuses on what's important. Mark has over close to 50 years experience in the retail industry, selling records to books to gifts in both eclectic retail strips of Melbourne and in major shopping centres, but doing it well throughout with the same sort of authenticity and quality that allows him to not only survive but thrive in an industry that's effectively gone online. Mark's going to talk to us about some great learnings and lessons that we all can take into the industry and to our own personal businesses and lives. Mark's a lovely, beautiful individual, and I think you'll enjoy watching this one. Mark, you opened your first retail store in 1972.
I did, Zelman, yeah.
Do you know how old I was in 1972?
I bet you weren't born then.
I wasn't born for a long time after that as well. And what was that Readings Bookshop?
No, that was a record shop called Professor Longhair's Music Shop.
Professor Longhair's Music Shop. That would have been a long website address.
Well, they didn't have websites
right,
then.
So that was okay.
And
what'd you sell?
we sold records.
Where was that?
It was just across the road from where we are in what was the student travel shop, which is
Just here on Lygon Street?
yeah, just closed during COVID, of course.
Oh, right, okay.
But that's where I started, and it was Puller's dry cleaning shop when I took it over.
So you bought records, stocked them,
Sold them.
it's a real basic retail store.
Had them all stolen once.
Your whole shop?
Yep, the whole shop. I came in one morning and said, gee, where have all the records gone? And they come in through the back roof.
Oh my God.
and take
Everything?
Everything was gone.
Did the CCTV cameras pick
They
them
didn't
up?
have CC then, so they didn't
Oh
have
my
computers either.
What was the business like back then?
I was great, yeah. Lygon Street was really, really pumping. And
Yeah.
Rock and roll music was really hot, and yeah, it was terrific.
How'd you get into the industry?
Well, I was a student at Melbourne University and had
What did you study?
I did politics and economics.
Okay.
And I started off doing medicine but failed that. My father was in the medical faculty. That was a great disappointment to him. So I had a job they had a bookshop at the university and also had a record bar there. So I was working in that record bar.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, this is quite fun. And I can do it quite well. So I thought I can do this, and the shop became vacant in Lygon Street, so I started up.
So how many records, how much did you start with? How much capital did you have? to
My
start your
mum lent
business?
me $10,000, which
Wow.
I paid her back in a year, which is quite.
Wow. And then the business was profitable in the first year? That's amazing. And how long did that business last for?
Well, that lasted in its various forms. Well, it's still part of our DNA, is selling. So down the road from Professor Longhair's Music Shop was Readings Bookshop, which was just a single shop.
Is it in this current venue we're sitting now?
No, that was across the road.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was quite friendly with the owner. I used to go and buy books because I love books. And one day he came and said, oh, my wife and I want to move to the country. Do you want to buy our business? And I love books. I was getting a bit sick of selling music.
Yeah.
And by that time I had two business partners. We'd had two other shops, which were record shops. And the margin on books was much higher than on music too. So I thought I would make some money. And so we bought that shop and changed everything, called it Readings, and moved into books.
What year was that?
That was 76, yeah.
Were there a lot of bookshops back in 1976?
There were a lot more than there were now, and especially in the CBD, there were probably 15 or 20 in the CBD. Now there's only 6.
Yes. So you started in the book industry in 1976.
Yeah.
Fast forward the next 30 odd years, a lot of your competitors have either gone online or disappeared, and you're virtually, to my knowledge, one of the only bookshops still around in Melbourne that's of any real substance and relevance.
Yeah, look, we've survived.
What's your secret to survival in an industry that's effectively gone online?
I love what I do, and one of the things I didn't, when I first went into the books, I really didn't, I was only 24 or 25.
Giving away your age now.
I was a kid and didn't have a clear vision of what I was doing, or what I wanted to do. I always thought I'd go back to university, but I didn't. And it was just the start when all the books, when I took over for Ross Reading, who owned the bookshop, his specialty was importing books from America. We didn't sell any Australian books because there weren't many published. But in the late 70s, early 80s, suddenly all these new Australian writers were emerging, and that sort of, I befriended a lot of the publishers and the authors, and I thought that was what our mission was to promote the Australian story. The people wanted to read Australian stories, and we could be part of that movement, and that's been proven. I mean, when we started, probably 5% of the books we sold were by Australian authors, Australian publishers. Now it's 40–50%. So it's amazing. So that's been one of the most exciting things I've seen in bookselling in Australia.
But has that also been the backbone of your success and sustainability as a bookshop in Melbourne?
I think so. We've always attended. Once again, I didn't quite know what I was doing, but I always thought, I started to get a clearer idea, but being part of the community was very important. So Carlton at that time was very much a community. There were lots of arts organisations, interesting people. So we aligned ourselves with them. So there's a great community theatre around the corner called La Mama. Mm-hmm. I was on the board for 16 years. We used to take their bookings.
Wow, what a story.
So that's really exciting.
So from the 1970s to today, how has this actual shop and retail experience changed?
Well, the first shop that Ross had was bare wooden floors, crappy wooden shelves on little brackets.
Yeah.
And now you can see this is a very attractive retail. So it's become, well, it's also 5 times the size. So it's become bigger. I think one of the things we are competing with online, but people want to meet with other people. They want an interaction, but they want to do that in a nice place and not a crappy place. So part of the things, I love good design, and is to create, try and create beautiful spaces that people want to hang out and hopefully buy things.
Well, it certainly is one of those places.
Yeah.
Everyone is scrambling to crack the code of what is the retail experience.
Yes.
From a customer's point of view, your business hasn't effectively changed all that much. Good design, good books, good customer service, customer knowledge, well priced, and you seem to not only withstand the test of time but grow while everyone else has gone in other directions. Yeah. And you probably hold to that retail experience more than anyone I've seen, doing exactly what you've done for the last 40 years, and it's working.
Yeah, well, we've changed and hopefully made it better.
Yes. But the fundamental experience is not, technology isn't replacing anything here.
No, it's not. We don't have digital signs everywhere or anything like that.
There's no computers or machines walking around trying to serve customers. This is what a store looked like 40 years ago.
And certainly, I used to travel quite a lot, and certainly there's other bookshops in Melbourne. Yeah. The ones that mark out the successful ones are the ones that do stick to the knitting, I guess. And obviously we sell music still, but we do sell gifts and knickknacks, but books are still the core.
And do you enjoy reading books?
I do, I love it. Yeah.
What book are you reading now?
I'm reading a book called Fulfillment, and it's about Amazon and how it's changing America.
Have you read every book in the shop?
Of course I have.
No, you haven't.
Damn, you've got me. No, I haven't. There's no way I could. I aspire to.
Yes.
I aspire to.
You've gone online. So Readings have an online bookstore. When did that start?
I always started dabbling in it about 20 years ago.
You were selling books online 20 years ago?
Yeah, but not very well.
When did it start kicking off?
We made a major investment probably about in 2011.
Okay.
And
is your online sales in line with your in-store sales?
They're about 12% now.
So 12% of your business comes from online. Yeah. The other 88 comes from.
Prior to COVID was about 6%. So.
Wow.
So COVID so last year most of our business went online, which was fantastic. Once again, people were supporting us and wanted us to survive.
You've had a successful career in retail over the last 40 odd years. Yeah. What would you say is the biggest change that you've experienced over your journey in the retail industry in Melbourne?
Well, I think technology. I mean, when I started, there were no computers, no way to manage your inventory. we used to write down in a little book every book we sold and then write out orders. So computerization of bookshops, that came very early for bookshops because there were so many SKUs to look after. So that's been a huge change. And then online has been, and the growth of online retailers like Amazon and Booktopia.
Has online been good for your industry?
I think it has been good. It's getting books out to people, and you know, if you're a book lover, you're going to love bookshops anyway. So hopefully you'll drift into one of our shops or another good bookshop.
For a lot of business owners and people that want to start their own business, what would your advice be on how to go about embarking on that journey, start your own business? And also, can you walk us through, very high level, what does a successful business look like as far as P&L?
I suppose from my point of view is I've always enjoyed it immensely. I've loved the product I sell.
Have you ever had a job?
Worked for someone?
Yeah.
When I was a student,
Okay.
yeah.
But since uni, you never had a job?
No. So I'm dealing with things I love and I'm deeply interested in. I also, the other thing I did is I got very involved in the industry. So I was president of the Booksellers Association, went on industry committees and things like that. So I was immersed in the whole everything and felt deeply committed to it. So I think
It's part of your life. Wasn't it?
But my advice to people is, yeah, to be passionate about and understand and know what you're selling and what you want to achieve, in what direction, and relate to your community and your customers in a genuine way, and not just treat them as a cash cow. You've got to treat them with respect, I think, and affection, because they often become dear friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And what should a successful business look like as far as every $100 that business earns? What percentage go to staff, rent, cost of
Well,
goods?
in our industry, and it's different for each, you know, hospitality has very high labour costs, for example. So we watch our costs. Our biggest costs is labour, and that's around about 23%.
Of your total turnover,
Yeah.
23 goes to labor.
Yeah. Occupancy, we try to keep it under 7% of
That's
turnover.
rent?
Yeah. And then there's other overheads, but we make about 6 cents in the dollar, so
In profit.
profit, yeah.
Wow.
So it's a tight margin.
No room for error.
No. And it's hard, it's hard. There's lots of competition
And who's your buyer? How do you know what's going to sell? You'd be spending millions of dollars on product.
Yep.
How do you know this product's going to sell?
you don't, because there's no market research.
No.
Every book's a new product, and you don't know if there's a market for it.
Are you still buying for your business?
I buy a little bit, but I have some wonderful people who do it now,
Yeah.
who are great readers. A lot of it's intuition, but obviously now you have more access to data, so you can see, this book on this subject sold this many copies, so maybe this will, because you have no time, you don't have time to read every book, you're making it quick. And you get pretty good at it, if you're good, because you need to be empathetic, you need to understand what your customer might be interested in, and you're not interested in that subject at all. So it's quite, and it's very fun to get it right too.
Absolutely. Mark, you live and work in Carlton and Lygon Street for decades.
Yeah.
You've seen it in a whole, you've
Yes.
seen Lygon Street in many different forms.
Yes.
What's your view on what's happening now on Lygon Street? And as a passionate resident and business owner, what are your advice to councils, landlords, and governments to help bring Lygon Street back to its glory days?
So I've been thinking about this a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've got any answers. One of the things I think where you see strips fail is where they lose diversity.
Yeah.
Because we're in Ackland Street as well. Now Ackland Street and Lygon Street quite interesting because they're both, I think they got their what made them interesting was the immigrant cultures that came to them. So in Lygon Street it was the Italians, and in Ackland Street it was the European Jews that came and opened up businesses there. And both those streets, when those communities came in, they gave it something special that ordinary Australians were attracted to. But what happened is they became very successful because of that, and the rents started to go up, and so the tradition, and also the immigrants who came in the post-war, they started to die, sold their businesses, and the strips changed, and they just became a bit more homogeneous. They got big chains in because chains were attracted to the crowds that were coming to see the Italians and the Jews who were being driven out, and so they became, so Ackland Street is now really just a street of crappy bars and crappy fast food joints and a lot of vacant shops. Lygon Street, the same thing. There were too many crappy Italian restaurants. The rents went up, so all the interesting businesses couldn't survive, or interesting businesses couldn't come in either. And so now, Lygon Street, south of Faraday Street, there's just every second shop is vacant. It's really sad. So somehow you need to encourage diversity, and it's really hard, of course, for an individual landlord. They care about their rent, their debt.
Yeah.
They probably aren't in a position to be benefactors. They maybe could see it a bit differently and just say, well, if I have a good relationship with a tenant, and if I help their business prosper, then I'm going to prosper ultimately, because the street's going to prosper, my value of my building's going to go up. So that it's got to be more of a partnership, I think. I think council and government could help by with rate relief, different kinds of incentives to encourage different kinds of businesses to come in. So you start to recreate the vibrancy, because you need generational change. And the chains do a great job, but they're not interesting because they're similar, and I guess that's part of the things when we think about readings. If, say, we open more shops, are we going to become a chain and just?
It's a very thin line between the two.
Yeah.
Becoming a very good retailer, becoming just another chain.
Yeah.
And losing that identity and diversity that you're talking about, it can be lost when staff's spread across too many stores and states.
It's hard to keep the culture alive all the time.
Yeah. Mark, thank you very, very much for sharing your time and letting us host this interview in your Lygon Street store. I've always admired you, and I've always appreciated your time and enjoyed talking to you. I think you're a true Australian retailer, and you really understand your customers, your products, your industry, and you're so invested in it. It's no wonder you're so successful.
Well, thank you
so much. Congratulations for bringing your son into the business, just to take that to the next level and continue the family legacy that you've created. Good on you.
Thanks, it's been a pleasure.